My mother has always been a difficult person. She is very traditional and has a certain idea of what the perfect wife and future mother should be like. But my wife is not what she expected. She is strong, independent, has a career she loves, and tattoos that my mother does not approve of. Ever since we got engaged, my mother has made it clear that she doesn't think my wife is the right match for me. She tried to interfere with our wedding, suggesting we change venues, the guest list, and even the date to suit her preferences. When we refused, she sulked for weeks. Later, she pushed for us to move closer to her, despite knowing it would mean my wife giving up her job. I have always supported my wife because I know she is a wonderful person and will be an amazing mother, and I made it clear to my mother that our decisions are ours alone. Now we are expecting our first child, and my mother wants to be present during the birth. Her own daughters, my sisters, did not allow her to be there when they gave birth, and now she is hoping that my wife will give her this chance. She constantly talks about how her friends were present at the birth of their grandchildren, how it was a beautiful and emotional moment, and how she feels robbed of that experience. She has even gone as far as saying that she is my mother, and therefore she should have a right to witness the birth of her grandchild. But my wife is completely against it, and I understand her. Childbirth is a very intimate, vulnerable experience, and if she does not want my mother there, that is her right. It's not about excluding my mother, it's about my wife feeling safe, comfortable, and respected during an already intense and painful moment. I tried to explain this to my mother, but she cried and said that I was depriving her of something precious, that I was putting my wife's feelings above hers, and that she had dreamed of this moment for years. It made me feel guilty, and I started to wonder if I was being too harsh. Then my wife came up with a brilliant argument. She said she would agree to my mother being present if I arranged for her father to be present during my colonoscopy. At first I thought she was joking, but she seriously explained that it was the same kind of situation, an experience where a person feels vulnerable, exposed, and does not want an audience, no matter how well-intentioned. She pointed out that none of my brothers would let our father watch their medical procedures, and he might feel left out too. I laughed at first, but then I realized she was absolutely right. Childbirth is not a spectator event, and if she does not want extra people there, she has every right to say no. I told my mother that my wife's decision was final and that we would not discuss it anymore. My mother was furious, saying that I was comparing something beautiful and natural to something disgusting and inappropriate. She claimed my wife was being cruel and purposely humiliating her. That's when my wife offered an alternative. She would allow my mother to be present at the birth if my mother allowed her to be present during her Brazilian wax. My wife pointed out that getting a wax is also painful, intimate, and uncomfortable, yet it's not something anyone would willingly invite an audience to watch. Since then, my mother has not spoken to us. I know my wife has a sharp sense of humor, but I can't help but admire the way she stands her ground. She has been nothing but respectful to my mother, despite all the judgment and criticism. She didn't have to come up with these comparisons. She could have just said no, and that should have been enough. But she wanted to make a point, and I think she did. I understand my mother's disappointment, but this is not about her. It's about my wife, who is the one going through childbirth. It's her body, her experience, and her choice. And I am sure she made the right one.